MMA Plug, powered by DenverSportsBetting.com, your one-stop shop for all Colorado sports. Check them out at DenverSportsBetting.com. I'm Ron Kruck, and he is Jordan Kurtz, joining you once again to preview some UFC fights. Jordan, how you doing, my man?
Ron, I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day here in the Mile High State. A little bit foggy from the smoke and from the fires, but aside from that, we're doing great out here.
Absolutely, man. It's time to get some rain in the Mile High City, and I'm not talking from Nuggets fans crying and Avalanche fans have kind of wiped the tears away. I'm talking we need to get those fires out. It's been crazy, and it's been crazy hot. I'm ready for some fall weather, that's for sure.
Last night, I felt a cool breeze in the air. It felt like it's on the way. It was kind of weird. It was, it's in a way, it's bittersweet because, I love the summer and I love being able to be in T-shirt and shorts all the time. Yeah. But it's also, man, like we've had a really dry summer, and this would really help everything that's going on nature-wise.
Yeah, 100%. Too much going on in the state of Colorado, but at least we've got some more UFC action as we've had the entire summer. As we head into fall, we'll keep the events rolling. This time I think it's UFC on ESPN Plus 33, but it's also known as Fight Night 8 on ESPN, or the fun at the UFC Apex. I can't really keep up with these names, but the bottom line is the UFC machine continues to roll on, and they keep producing events. And this is a good one, Jordan. This is going to be really stacked card. Maybe for mainstream MMA fans, not as many big names, but there are some real talented fighters on this card, and I think we're going to see some great fights. And we start with the main event. The light heavyweights get the marquee billing as Anthony Smith squares off with a young up-and-comer in Alexander Rakic. This is a 3-round main event, and this one could be an all-out war. I'm excited about this. But 100% honesty is, Jordan, I'm a little worried too. I mean, it's only been 3.5 months since Smith sustained a brutal TKO loss and really a prolonged beating to Glover Teixeira. So he returns pretty quickly, and Rakic is not only coming off a loss, but he's proven to be a monster in the octagon too. But the stakes are high for this 105-pound matchup. And with John Jones out of the picture for now after vacating his title, and Dominic Reyes set to take on Jan Blachowicz, the belt for UFC 253. The winner of this matchup with Rakic and Smith takes a step closer to getting back into the title mix. Odds for this fight, Jordan, coming in from DenverSportsBetting.com and FanDuel have Anthony Smith as a big-time underdog. He is plus 260. Alexander Rakic, he opened up, I saw, at minus 278. He's all the way up to a minus 345. So the money is coming in on the young Rakic. Give us your take on Smith and Rakic, Jordan.
Ron, you mentioned something right away off the top, that this is a quick turnaround for Anthony. But if we take a look at the history of the career that is Anthony Smith, you'll recognize that this is on brand for Lionheart. First and foremost, he got the nickname Lionheart for a reason. He's Midwest tough. He turns around quick from fight to fight. And in all seriousness, he gets better when he fights more frequently and when he stays better. If you also look at the way that his career has gone, he's never suffered back-to-back losses within the UFC. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. When we're looking at the experience element as far as this matchup goes, that is 100% leaning in Anthony's direction. Now, that's not to discredit what Rakic can do, because Rakic is very powerful, very explosive. I do think that he is a little bit basic in some of what he brings, but he is very, very effective and very efficient in those few things, those few combinations that he is going to throw. And that's something that, it's almost like the whole, the old power football thought. We're going to be running power all day long. Can you stop it? And that's kind of what Rakic has done.
Yep, you got it.
Yes, sir. And so that's the way that I see it. I think that it's gonna, for Anthony's side, for him to get it in his, he's obviously, he's not gonna want to stand in front of some of those big explosive bombs that Alexander's gonna bring his way.
Right.
But I also think that Anthony might have some new tools in the old proverbial tool belt that he's ready to bring out within this matchup. Yes, to get it out there and to address anything on that side. I am close to the situation, being that Anthony is one of our teammates over here at Factory X, but also at the same time, objectively speaking, I think that Anthony has a well-rounded game as a whole. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's explosive on the feet. And really and truly, when we look at that Glover matchup, he was able to do at will what he wanted within those first 2 rounds. It was just a matter of once his adrenaline kind of dumped, then that's where it came. And also, he's in a much better place mentally. If we remember that last matchup with Glover, that was coming right on the heels of a very, very major life adversity circumstance that happened outside of the cage. So there was a lot of stuff that was going into it. And now also, Ron, this is the second time that he's fighting on a COVID card. So he knows what that atmosphere is like now, not going out and feeding off of the crowd, or not having a crowd to feed off of as far as the energy goes.
Yeah, interesting takes for sure. You're exactly right. He's called Lionheart for a reason. The guy never quits. He's as tough of a competitor you'll ever see. As much courage and tenacity as anyone to ever enter into the octagon. But 48 professional fights on the wrong side of 30, and having lost 2 of his last 3 fights in semi-lopsided fashion. I'm just a little worried about the quick turnaround. Now, the beating he suffered against Teixeira, in my opinion, Jordan, never should have happened. The fight should have been called off long before it was brought to a merciful end early in that 5th round. But you made the point, and this is what people forget. He was dominating Glover in those early rounds. And what he has done also, and made a living, as making these incredible comebacks and then, ending a fight with a slick submission. So where Smith's stock as maybe a top contender may have dropped slightly after that loss, he is really, in my opinion, one more spectacular finish like he had against Gustafsson or Rashad Evans or Shogun Rua to be right back. So, he's got, he can always get right back in the mix quickly. Now for Rakic, the guy boasts thunderous power. I mean, crazy strength. And so far he's 12-2, but he's had a habit in finding the knockout, which, bottom line is 9 career KO finishes out of 12 wins. If you ever really want to see the power that he has, please refer to the head kick knockout of Jimmy Manuwa. What an unbelievable, devastating knockout that was. Probably one of the best in light heavyweight histories. But so we've seen the power of the 28-year-old. He's coming off a loss, albeit it was a questionable split decision. If you look back at his history, his first loss since his professional MMA debut, and what he do after that? Well, he promptly reeled off, I think, 8 straight consecutive stoppage victories. So he knows how to bounce back from a defeat. And bottom line is he still needs that win to remain in the title mix. So a lot on the line in this one. Again, I kind of think the X factor, though, has Smith had enough time to recover from that onslaught that he sustained from Teixeira? And Jordan, you said it, you are at Factory X, and you've seen him. He claims he has no lingering effects. Your take as you see him around the gym, both mentally and physically, is he ready for this quick turnaround?
I think so. I think that if he would have had the opportunity, he truly would have fought in sooner. And just like I say, right. the smiling alone, without giving too much off or pulling the curtain back too much.
Sure, understood.
Anthony seems like he's in a good headspace mentally. I think that a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter.
Sure.
And I think that basically from the last fight, it's kind of one of those things where, you experienced some real adversity from the crowd and from the fans and all of that. But for someone like him, it kind of is it doesn't really faze him too much. So I think he's just, he's a Midwest boy from Nebraska who just wants to go back out and fight. He's that type of guy who, say that all of this wasn't a part of the mix, would probably still go out and be getting into, little just amongst your boys, little fight clubs sort of situations. He truly loves doing what he does. And the fact that he's back in the mix, and a big part of it too is, Ron, is he has a great support system. So him having such a solid support system is something that I also feel like has allowed for him to not only physically be able to rebound, because in general with his injuries, he's like Wolverine and has superpower when it comes to healing. But mentally, having that strong support system around him, he's a very family-oriented man, loves his wife, loves his daughters. Having that as a cornerstone within his life on a daily basis, I feel like is really what's helped get him ready to bounce back and go have fun.
Yeah, great take for sure. All right, so that leads us to the pick. As of this recording, and according to denversportsbetting.com and FanDuel, Anthony Smith is the underdog at plus 260, and Alexander Rakic is minus 345. I'll start us off this week, Jordan. I really do think Rakic is one of the most exciting light heavyweight prospects to come in quite some time. I think this has the making of an absolute stand-up war, as both guys will try to dictate the pace. I see Smith using his jabs and his powerful rights, and Rakic, his Muay Thai, his kicks, his range, in an effort to tire out Lionheart. He's younger. He'll have to stay calm and composed in this fight against the veteran, and against a guy in Smith who is as powerful as they come and can end this in an instant. I think, you look at significant strikes. Smith definitely takes a lot more damage than Rakic has at this point in his career. But Smith lands one of those bombs and it's over, or it could even lead to another one of those incredible submission finishes that we have seen him pull off in the past. I just don't think that's going to be the case in this one. I'm going with a slight lean. This was a tough one for me, Jordan. I could see this going either way. I think that's a play. If you like the power of Anthony Smith, those are great odds to take. But I'm going slight lean with the younger Rakic to get a win by way of KO.
That's a fair pick. I naturally, I'm going to go on the opposite side of that, and I'm going to go with Lionheart. But I also feel like that's a pick that I don't think that's a bad bet if you're out there looking to place a wager on this particular matchup, simply for the fact that Lionheart is that tough. And we haven't seen Rakic go deep into fights or have to really tread through muddy water a lot through his career, because he is so explosive, because he can end the night with just one shot. So what will he do if say, just for example, this ended up, getting into some real, heavy clinch situations to where that's going to increase the fatigue factor? Or if he isn't able to, land that big shot early. We've seen that with some of these big punchers at the 205 division recently. We talked about it last week with Menefield. That is definitely an element to consider. If you're that young guy who's relied on knocking everybody out and you can't knock them out, or you hit them with everything you have, and that man is still standing there in your face wanting more, how are you going to react? I think that's the big question for Rakic in this particular situation, but I do think that Lionheart gets it done. I think that he's going to make a lot of people some money who decide to bet on his underdog side.
Great take. This is the MMA Plug, powered by Denver Sports Betting. Check them out at denversportsbetting.com. One-stop shop for everything Colorado sports. They've got your Avalanche versus Stars betting previews. They've got the Nuggets versus the Jazz previews. And if you go to denversportsbetting.com, scroll down, you look for the MMA Plug icon, click on that, and you'll get some UFC previews from Jordan Kurtz and myself, Ron Kruck. Thank you so much for supporting us and for listening. All right. Time now, Jordan, to move on to what should be an awesome co-main event. Two welterweight veterans really squaring off in a matchup of different striking styles, as the veteran, ruthless Robbie Lawler, who has been KOing people in the cage for nearly 20 years, meets the elusive and always tough and entertaining Neil Magny. Recently, Jordan, honestly, Lawler has fallen on hard times, 3 consecutive losses for the first time in his nearly 20-year career. It's been over a year since he's made the walk to the octagon, and he's hoping that time off can maybe lead to a career rejuvenation, which we have seen with Lawler happen, and maybe one more run at UFC Gold before it's all said and done. Magny, on the other hand, has won 4 out of his last 5, including back-to-back impressive unanimous decisions. So he is fighting really well at this point. The current odds as of this recording, according to DenverSportsBetting.com and FanDuel, Neil Magny is your favorite. He is he is the favorite at minus 260, and Lawler, the comeback, is plus 215. So the veteran is the underdog. A lot on the line in this one if he wants to both these guys to kind of stay in that mix. Give us your breakdown on this co-main event, Jordan.
I think, just like you mentioned, it's a very contrasting strikers matchup. You have Neil on one side, who is heavy on the volume, and then you have Robbie, who has take your soul sort of power.
Yeah.
The one thing that concerns me with this particular matchup is the pressure and the volume element that Neil Magny could potentially present to Robbie. Now, I don't know if Neil has the same sort of bang to his punch or power to his punch the way that Colby did in that last matchup with Robbie. And Robbie, it just looked like for, the entirety of that fight, he was rearing up and waiting for Colby to fade so he could kind of sprint and counter off. But Colby just never got tired. Colby never slowed down. Colby never relented with the pressure and the volume. So because Robbie had a little bit of trouble with that, I think that Neil has the ability to kind of replicate that and the success that was seen against Robbie in that last matchup. Now, yes, Robbie has lost 3 in a row, but if we look back to one of those, that was the Ben Askren fight, which was very controversial with the Bulldog choke. And you could also make the argument that prior to that point where he got grappled up, that when he essentially pulled like the F5 or the can't see me, some sort of WWE move to Ben Askren and slammed him on his head, had him with a couple of heavy ground and pound shots, and it looked like Ben flashed out. Nonetheless, fight didn't get stopped. It continued on. Herb Dean had the stoppage. We've all seen the clip after, and the way that Robbie reacted to that, though, is why we all love Robbie Lawler. There's a reason why universally throughout his entirety in the sport, who throughout 2 decades has basically no one who can trash talk him or who wants to. I don't think that there is anybody in the sport who has had the history that Robbie does that is universally beloved that he is in the fashion that he is.
Great point. This is going to be a real fun matchup. I like, Magny's style has really been just annoying his opponents here as he kind of dictates his own pace and uses those really annoying jabs before he starts firing combinations. He's a guy that will throw punches and volumes, but also, this is a guy who averages a 2.5 takedowns per bout. So solid ground game with Magny too, younger fighter. But once again, as soon as you count out the ruthless one, you're looked like a fool. I mean, I think that he has rejuvenated his career before. He could do it again. I think this layoff will be a good thing for him, but how much does he still have in the tank after years of wars? I mean, just look back at those fights with Rory McDonald and Carlos Condit and Woodley and everyone else. But, it's been since UFC 214 since he's got a win, and that was over Cowboy Cerrone. But it's amazing how he keeps rolling. The dude made his UFC debut at 20 years old. I mean, unreal. I could go on and break down Robbie Lawler's fight game, but really, why wouldn't you go to the source first? I had the time, Jordan, and the opportunity to sit down with his former head coach at Miletich Fighting Systems and talk about what Robbie Lawler does well. The UFC Hall of Famer, Pat Miletich, spoke about the Ruthless One. UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich comes into the MMA Plug. Appreciate your time, my man.
Well, you know, Ron, we do work together.
Oh, that's true. You were sitting next to me, but still, very kind of you. Hey, nobody knows Robbie Lawler as well as you. Maybe
well, his wife,
family.
his wife,
maybe his
yeah,
family.
You know.
But I mean, you guys go back to the Miletich Fighting System days when
right.
you guys were just dominating, and you know, he's now 38 years old, but still getting it done. Why, Pat, has he been successful for so many years?
Well, I mean, look, he started, I think, his sophomore, junior year of high school in our gym, and it was more on the wrestling coaches who Paul Castro and Wayne Hoganson. I wrestled with Wayne in high school, but Paul Castro was probably probably one of the most pivotal men in my life too. But they saw that Rob maybe needed a little bit more influence from guys who were driven. And so they brought him in, and he started training with us when it wasn't football season and when it wasn't wrestling season. And he loved it. He was very good in a very short amount of time. He was very quiet but very observant, paid attention, didn't run his mouth, none of that. He's just a very stoic guy. So he was a sponge, you know what I mean? But I think, you know, Robbie has that rare combination of intelligence. You know, the power of observation. Again, he paid attention to a lot of stuff, not just in terms of training or fighting, but in life in general. He paid attention, and that's why he's always been pretty quiet around the media. He doesn't talk about his family. He doesn't talk about his private life. None of that. That's just the way he is. But Rob is a unique animal in terms of his intensity, his talent, his athleticism, and the ferocity. I mean, you know, Robbie's a guy who can end a fight at any given time, and he's proven it time and time again. When, you know, even when he was in trouble in fights, just decided that when Rob decides to end it, a lot of times it ends. You know, and he's just that. He's just that guy, and those guys are so rare in history that can do that consistently. He's just a even 1 in a million in the MMA game.
I think my favorite comment when he was asked about how he's been dealing with COVID, he's like, I've been fine. I like social distancing. I like being away from people. So
yeah, you know, that's the thing. Rob, a Rob line that I'll never forget. My friend Tim Shimbori, and Tim's a pretty stoic guy himself. He's a pretty quiet guy. Doesn't talk a lot, and when he talks, he says something. One of those kind of guys.
Gotcha.
You know? Yep. And so Tim and I and Rob, I think we spent a lot of time together on a car ride. We were going to some fights or something. We hung out all the way up to the fights. It was a good drive, and then on the way back, and we hung out for quite a while and stuff. And we dropped Tim off, and Rob looked at me and he goes, I like that Tim guy. And I go, why's that? And he goes, he doesn't talk very often.
But when you get him to talk, man, I love doing interviews with Lawler. He's a good guy, man, for sure. And he's very, as you said, he's very intelligent. He's got an incredible fight IQ. So, and he's going to need it as he comes into this fight with Neil Magny. Very interesting matchup of different striking styles, but one that I think could benefit to Robbie. Give us your take. Well, how's this fight going to go? What does he need to do to be successful?
Well, I mean, Rob needs to be Rob. You know, Robbie, you know, is his IQ in terms of fighting and grinding people down. You know, he needs to make sure that he steps inside on Magny and just keeps it there. Don't give him any space. You know, and just make him box. Yeah. Make him box. Make him fight. You know, in that. You know, that 3 foot, you know, in a telephone booth, so to speak, and cut off the ring. Don't follow him around. Cut him off, and make Neil fight. And Rob's comfortable in those positions. Martial artists are not comfortable in those positions. A lot of martial artists, a lot of fighters, MMA fighters, are comfortable with that. The safety zone that is dictated by kicks, that distance, right? A lot of MMA guys are comfortable there. Rob's comfortable there, but he's also really comfortable in phone booth distance, where he's not panicked and he can cover up and block in those tiny fractions of time that you have to deal with all that stuff happening inside. Rob operates very well and is very comfortable in there, where I don't think Neil's as comfortable in those positions. So I think that's something. And, you know, to be honest with you, Robbie now and then should hit a takedown and dump Neil and thin out his defense a little bit, you know, and make him think, because Robbie can put you on your back and he can put you away there. You know, Robbie he'll put you to sleep there. He will. I certainly wouldn't want my head laying on the canvas getting hit by Rob. So, you know, I think that, you know, spread out his defense a little bit, but keep the fight, you know, in that close proximity, and I think he can wear Neil down.
Before I let you go, you always have great stories about the days at Militich Fighting Systems when you guys were dominating. Give us a funny or unique story that you remember about Robbie back in the day.
Yeah, well, and Rob was just sitting there. He didn't say anything.
Right.
He didn't need to say anything. I used him as a lesson for Matt Hughes. And Matt got the better of me that night. I was a UFC champion at the time. Matt was ranked probably 4th in the world or 5th in the world, whatever.
Okay.
And Matt kicked my ass that night. Matt got the better of me big time that night. And at the time, Robbie was probably 18, something like that. But Robbie at the time, you know, already in high school on sparring night was knocking the shit out of world champions.
Wow.
Guys would come in from out of town or a different country who were very accomplished world ranked fighters, and Robbie knocked the shit out of them in the gym. And so everybody knew Robbie was eventually going to be a world champion in the gym. We all knew it. But I was sitting there. I just got out of the shower, had a towel around me, and I'm sitting there. And Matt's feeling his oats a little bit, you know. And one of those, like, Matt almost started singing. And every once in a while, on bad nights for me, he'd sing, "Old gray mare ain't quite what it used to be."
Oh, man.
You know, and stuff like that. And just
Damn.
and he'd goad me like that, right? That's what
So
we
you
do.
do. That's what you guys do.
So, but anyway, Matt goes, "You better keep looking over your shoulder, old man." He goes, "'Cause I'm coming for you." And, you know, kind of cocky, and, you know,
of course,
Matt was incredibly powerful at the time. And I said, "Yeah." And I was looking at Matt sitting on the bench where he was in the locker bay. But right behind him was Rob Lawler sitting there, just doing nothing. And I go, "Me looking over my shoulder, huh?" And Matt goes, "Yeah, you better keep looking over your shoulder." And I go, "Look over your fucking shoulder." And he turns around and he looks and he sees Lawler, and he turns around and he goes, "Point taken."
That's awesome. Love it, man. All right, well, appreciate your time. Why don't we do an LFA show tomorrow night?
Yeah, let's rock it, man. Everybody tune in.
All right, brother. Thanks. The one and only Pat Militich. Appreciate the UFC Hall of Famer taking his time to talk to us. And one thing he said to me, Jordan, as always has said this about Robbie Lawler, that when you find out that you're going to fight Robbie Lawler, you 100% know you're going to feel it the next day. There's no doubt about it. You better be mentally and physically prepared. But love that story about, hey, old gray mule, you better look over your shoulder. And then Hughes, same thing. And there's Robbie Lawler back there. God, I wish there was more social media in the back days of Militich Fighting Systems when they were killing it and had all the champions, because that would have been an incredible reality show. But very cool to hear Militich talk about Robbie Lawler.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, it's incredible to see just how the game comes full circle, or the way that the degrees of separation come, because guys like, you know, that I'm close with, like your Dustin Jacobys of the world, Brian Foster's,
yes,
Cortez Coleman's of the world. You know, Dustin Jacoby and I, for that matter, we did commentary for a promotion out here, and we shared Robbie Lawler stories when we had downtime in between fights.
Nice.
You know, Brian Foster shared the story of how his baptism to the team back in the day was you had to go do a round with Robbie Lawler.
Oh, geez. Welcome.
What a tough first day.
Yeah, that's brutal. That is brutal. Welcome to the team, my man.
Yes,
well,
sir.
It should be a great matchup. Again, the closing odds as of this recording, Magny is the favorite, -250. Lawler at now a +190. Those are your odds coming in from DenverSportsBetting.com and FanDuel. I'll throw it over to you in this one, Jordan. Who do you like? Who you taking?
As much as I love Robbie, and as elated as I am going through the nostalgia of, you know, just his career the last few minutes, I'm going to have to go with Neil Magny in this matchup. Neil he's been on point. That's the best thing he's been sharp. That is something that I feel like is underrated against a guy like a Robbie who will want to get a little bit grimy at times or has the tendency to brawl. Neil is too fast, and Neil will get in and out clean out of those exchanges. He's long, he's lengthy, and he has the ability to use evasive defensive tactics that can get him outside of those big bombs that Robbie will likely rely on to finish the fight. I like Neil Magny in this matchup.
Yeah. It's a tough matchup for Robbie Lawler to come back. And although I'm a little hesitant to ever pick against a Miletich Fighting Systems guy, especially when the UFC Hall of Famer is sitting next to me during LFA broadcasts and could easily just knock me out with one shot. I do have a job to do. And if I was to take someone in this fight, I have to go with Neil Magny as well. I think Lawler will need to stop and fill up the gas tank several times to stick with the quick and versatile Magny. Unfortunately, Lawler at 38 years old, this isn't the guy from 15 years ago. His days of using those powerful strikes before finding the finish may not be over, but they have been few and far between of late. I think the technical Magny avoids the big shots and will wear Lawler down for the win. Well, this is the MMA Plug, sponsored by Denver Sports Betting. Denver Sports Betting is your one-stop shop for all of Colorado sports, covering the Broncos, the Avalanche, the Nuggets, and, of course, the Rockies. And then Jordan Kurtz and I break down UFC fights as well. So check out denversportsbetting.com. Jordan, part of the show where we now pick a fight or a fighter to keep an eye on. A lot of young talent on this card. I had a hard time kind of focusing in on one, but I'll turn the spotlight over to you. What's your fight to feature this week?
I think that there's a couple that really present some watch-worthy, if that's a word. I'm creating something on the fly here, elements to them. But one of them is a G in the game and is a longtime veteran. The other is just barely getting started within her UFC career. The first one that I want to highlight is Mallory Martin. I absolutely love watching Mallory Martin fight. I think that she's basically like a female version of Khabib. Some of the antics that she's had in a cage when she's just absolutely mauling women.
So true.
Is just, when she's screaming, nobody can save you. Happy Halloween, just screaming these things.
Yeah.
Like, as you're on the bottom wearing those elbows in the ground and pound, how just breaking of your will does that have to be to have that person who's over the top just screaming at you to quit? It's like Khabib when he was telling Michael, you must have, to Edson Barbosa as well. So that's where I draw those comparisons. And I think that she is going to be a fixture within that women's division for years to come. The other person that I want to highlight is Zach Cummings. Zach Cummings, I feel like, is one of the most solid veterans in the game who just doesn't get a lot of love.
Good point.
Doesn't get a whole lot of shine and is slept on. He's fighting Alessio Di Chirico. He's been around for now 7 years in the UFC. He's 23-7 in total. That's a very, very solid career for someone who has fought some of the best of the best. I mean, if you look at who some of those losses are to, just look at the resume. That's all that you need to see. You're looking at Gunnar Nelson, Santiago Ponzinibbio. You're looking at Omari Akhmedov. You're looking at some of the guys. Tim Kennedy is another one that's there in the mix. Ryan Jimmo. Those are all guys who were at some of the tops of their game throughout their careers. So for Zach Cummings to be in the mix with so many of these guys and having solid finish wins over guys like Trevin Giles in the recent history.
Yes.
I love the way that Zach Cummings fights. He's a guy that he shows up chewing gum and ready to kick some butt, and then he's out of gum.
Yes, they live reference. I like it. Little Roddy Piper here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and right now he's out of bubble gum. I love that focus on Cummings, Jordan. This is just a guy who's been doing it forever. 23-7, like you said. I remember him back in the Strikeforce Challenger series. That's how old I am. And then when he finally got onto the Ultimate Fighter, made a name for himself there and moved on and just has been a workman like blue collar guy going to work each week in the UFC. That's a great pick to keep a focus on. I'm going to go this week, and I was going back and forth with this one, but Alexa Grasso and Jeon Young Kim. I love this matchup. I just like Grasso as she is now moving up to flyweight from strawweight. I think this is a big opportunity. She's kind of been known as someone who has got some love and some press, and then during those big fights just hasn't been able to get it done. But she comes in as a minus 305 favorite. And Kim, the comeback is plus 230. Of course, these odds are coming in from DenverSportsBetting.com and FanDuel. If you look at the matrix, if you like the numbers and you look at the metrics of this fight, pretty much Grasso beats Kim in everything. I mean, from significant strikes to accuracy, takedowns. I mean, everything. I like Grasso in this fight a lot. She's a technical striker, and she's had tough times with grapplers, but that's not what Kim is. Kim does have, I believe, a purple belt in BJJ, but she's a kickboxer that should establish her distance and her jab a little bit more than she have. She's got, I believe, in this fight an 88-inch reach advantage over Grasso, but I think this is Grasso's time. I think this fits her style very well. I like, if I was going to take a play on this one, this is kind of a bet that stood out to me. I like Alexa Grasso to beat Kim in this fight.
I would agree with that as far as that pick. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how Grasso's body acclimates to carrying the extra 10 pounds. Keep in mind, when we're talking about going from 115 to 125, proportionately, that's a much bigger jump than, say, someone that's going, from 45 to 55 and so on and so forth, just because they are just that much of a smaller human being.
You bet.
And that being said, if it does get into, some heavy voluminous exchanges, just how will she react at the higher weight class carrying the extra weight in terms of her gas tank and her cardio? But I do agree with every last thing that you said as far as on paper, she walks away in every single category in this fight.
Yep. But as we have seen over the years, they'll settle it in the octagon, and you can rip that paper up and say, damn, maybe I should have went with the underdog on that one. But should be a great night of fights. 3 women's bouts on this card, which is very cool, and then just the insane co-main event between Lawler and Magny, and the main event, man, just buckle the seatbelt for that one between Smith and Rakic. Should be a lot of fun. Jordan, great job as always, my man. Regards to everyone at Factory X from me and the LFA team, LFA 89, going down tomorrow night from here in South Dakota. Exclusively on UFC Fight Pass. We got a great main event. Check it out. Joe Giannetti coming in from the East Coast. He was a part of Daniel Cormier's season 27 of The Ultimate Fighter, and taking on Brant Moore, the BJJ black belt from Texas at 7-1. Some great fights. So check out LFA number 89 on UFC Fight Pass on Friday night, and then of course the UFC on ESPN Saturday night. Jordan, enjoy the fights, brother.
You too.